Thank you for joining us today on the Sisterhood Leadership Podcast with Dianne Wilson, recorded live from Orange County, California. If you'd like to subscribe, click on the link below.
Hi, I'm Dianne Wilson. Welcome to our brand new Sisterhood Leadership Podcast. We've been meeting as a sisterhood for over 10 years, and recently we were talking amongst ourselves as leaders on what we could do in this very different season and very different era in the life of our church. 10 years ago, most of the women in our sisterhood were either not married yet, no kids, or they had grown kids and time. So we were able to meet every Friday morning. Well, recently I was looking at how many people were able to come on a Friday morning and how many weren't. And it just seemed like crazy for us to not make some changes so that we could reach more women and help more women develop in their leadership. So we're excited about this new leadership podcast, including different leaders every single week. We're having a conversation. There's going to be questions asked and answered. And my heart is to make everything practical, because leadership has got to apply to our real life, not just in theory. And so thanks for joining us. And we really hope that you enjoy this month as we focus on, of course, our Bible, which we love. We call it the Bible Book Club. And Bible in a year is amazing. This is my 17th year around the block. And of course, this month we're focusing on one of my resources, It's Time, and this is a leadership book. So thanks again for being with us and hope you enjoy. Welcome to our weekly Sisterhood Leadership Podcast. Today, I am in the company of one of God's finest. I've got to say that because this is Pastor Kim Bohling, and Pastor Kim is actually my go-to pastor. So I've got to tell you that it's actually a privilege to have you here, because you've seen more like snotty tears than you probably ever wanted to from me. But what I love about you is you always bring humor into healing. Yeah. And I think when it comes to like your kids, because your whole family are in our church, part of our church, have been on the journey of our church for ever since we started. I met Karen the Brave. I met her. She's been mentioned so many times, yet no one's ever seen her on one of these yet. We're about to do it. The elusive. But I met her when she was at college in Australia, and we've been very close ever since. And when I met you, it's like, aha, the apple does not fall far from the tree. But I love your whole family. You're all very, very interesting. You're very interested. And you've been an incredible strength and support to Jonathan and I and our family, personally, not just pastorally. Good. And I want to talk a little bit about pastoring and how you do pastoral care, because one theme that I know with some of our leadership girls that we've spoken to, some of our core leaders, a common theme of their experience in doing ministry with other women and has been interesting, some of it. And I remember that one time we asked a loaded question: have you ever led anyone on your team or done some kind of ministry work with somebody and they've become offended? Oh. And so interestingly enough, and these women are in their late 20s, early 30s, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answered in a row that it was the offence of an older woman. And I was like, why does this happen? Because here we are, you and I, we're like midlifers not having a crisis. It's really awesome. We had all of them in our early years, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So because the Bible talks about how it's important that if you are an older woman, that you keep busy. You're an example to the younger women. Yeah. That you don't sit around gossiping and meddling. And so I think purpose is a really big part of it. So can you just share a little bit with our own sisterhood girls and anyone else who's tuned in, welcome, about how you navigate through pastoring the generations, including the older women that sometimes are a little bit more fragile?
Yes. Well, I think that when I started, I really wanted to posture myself as a learner. So I don't view myself as an age. I view myself in process. So when I meet people, I love to explore who they are and listen to what God has built into their life. And that seems to dissolve age and generations.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it also provides a great gift to me in that I can learn. I can learn from younger generations, and I can also stay teachable so that I don't have a formula for listening to people and giving them pat answers. I'm actually in it for the immediate moment, not to accomplish a certain goal that I think they'll say because they're a certain age. And how do I stay resilient and unoffendable? I think I just look at myself and laugh a lot because I need to know God laughs at me.
Just write that down, maybe in lipstick on your mirror.
Yeah.
And remember.
Anyway, it helps.
Yeah, it's true. And, another quality I love about you is that you have, I don't know how you do this. I'm like, let's just say that you are Wonder Woman, because it honestly is like some kind of magic trick. You're available. And how you're in charge of the pastoral care of our entire church. You do have a husband that you love to spend time with, and you do your little romantic getaways, and it's not weird. It's actually really good.
Yeah,
it's like
needed.
You talk about older people having a romantic getaway, and if you're like 20 something watching this, it might be like, or you might be like, oh, inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that you do that. How on earth do you do that? Some of us don't even know how to tie our shoelaces.
Yeah.
And yet on call.
My strength is in the challenge of being fluid. I do well with fluidity in my life. I try to keep the main thing. And then I have learned by degree, it's been a lesson, how to turn over control of my days. And I recognize certain days, some things are immovable and other things are dispensable. And I try to allow God to interrupt that process. That's my life. When I was a teacher, I preferred working with kids that were alternate learners. I like impulsivity. I thrive on it. But I also know the place of discipline and putting things in the right order. So my every day is new.
Interestingly enough, I just remembered this. So yesterday, we had a bit of a calendar cramp. It can happen. And so I called you and said, are you available between whatever the times were? And you said, I can be. I'll just ask the big boss. And we were texting actually.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, yeah, please ask Harry, your husband, if that's okay. And then you came back and said, oh, there's a bigger boss than Harry. I kind of knew, but I was like, I didn't want to presume.
Yeah.
And so when you say turning your day over, it's actually, allowing. And as it turned out, thank God, because you were with me yesterday for something that was a big pastoral moment happening with somebody that required us both.
Yeah.
And if you were not there, I don't know. It was just really important. So I think understanding if you're a pastor or you are feel like you're called to be, somebody who's caring for people and helping people, that flexibility is important. And also remembering if you are really technical as well as caring, that yes, it's great to have an app for that and everything else, but when people need you, they don't want to be directed to an app or a website or if they just want general information. But what I do love about your role in our church is that you have been able to be a wonderful example and trainer of other upcoming pastors, knowing that if somebody is in a hospital, they want your presence, not necessarily just a text or something, and just like being there with people. Or if there's a loss, when there's a loss, and we don't like loss. We don't like when there's loss, but when that happens, just that presence of having a person there, not with all the words, because what on earth do you say? Sometimes it's not words, it's presence.
Yes.
And you do know how to make a cup of tea, and it does change people's lives.
Yeah.
And so it's not even having all the right answers, but presence is really important. So just tell us about your secret recipe for your brownies, because all I know is I apparently can't make good brownies because yours have got something in them and they always arrive like wrapped, and my kids are like, oh, she's my favorite.
Yeah. The brownies are actually plagiarism from the Mexican part of my family. I have a huge multicultural family, and I learned quickly that cinnamon and chocolate together make your eyes roll back in your head. So my brownies are a secret.
You mean like in a good way?
Yeah, not a seizure. But but I sprinkle cinnamon in my brownies, and people think I'm amazing. Brownies really started from needing to make things fast that would feed a lot of people.
Right.
So the fact that people love those brownies is more about the love I think they have than how the brownies taste, but I'm happy to be associated.
I've got to tell you, you want to make your way into people's hearts and lives and let them know how much they matter. Come with a little plate of brownies.
Something. Bring something.
Yeah, bring something, and you're definitely gifted at that. I'm looking at this room right now and thinking Humble Beginnings a year ago when we launched something for our local community kids called Homework Club. And Homework Club is an after-school program that we run at our church. And basically it started in my home with my little girl London and a couple of her friends, and then it grew. There were too many kids to fit in the house without it being like crazy. So we moved it to our church, and that was really cool because then parents would come and see, oh gosh, this is, this is church, and some of the kids have been coming on Sunday to Sunday school, and it's just been fantastic. But the goal of Homework Club is to do homework. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and it doesn't cost anything, and parents are like, let me write a check, like why you should be charging for this. And this year we've implemented a new idea for people. If they do want to donate something, they can give towards the Imagine Foundation, but we want this to be a gift.
Yes.
Because everything's a transaction around here in Orange County. It's like, you pay for everything, and for our team to be able to do this for the children is amazing. And these kids are ragamuffins. So this year, Kim's joined the Homework Club team. When I say ragamuffins, what does that mean? It means they're super bright, super high achieving, super cute, super spoilt in the most wonderful way. Like they need for very little. Some of them have got family backgrounds that are a little bit troubled with parents and everything, but we've all got our family stories. But what I love is that you just mentioned that you love working with alternate learners. And I even watched you helping my kids when they were growing up, especially like I've got a really creative son.
Yeah.
So that just, for anyone who knows, that is, because the other one's not. So anyway, that you were able to encourage his learning because he was learning differently. And I love the fact that this year your role, just explain what your role is by name, and then what that looks like, because what an incredible outreach.
Yeah. So I have the joy of being a part of the Homework Club, and we all have pseudonyms, fake identities that are really real. And my pseudonym, my identity is Miss Manners. So I bring the maternal loving authority that will point you in the right direction and shape you up for life element to Homework Club. And the kids seem to really love it. And I can't even tell you how much I love it. It's just filled a big place in my heart. I love them.
The first week when we launched back for this year, I walked in an hour in and they were like crawling the walls. One kid, fell through a fire escape door, skinned his knee. First time, I'm like, awesome, I can't wait to meet your mum and tell her I'm so sorry. And they were like loud, and I'm like, this is not going to work. And then that was the week we decided to strategize. Okay, we need a plan here because these children have outnumbered us. Like, And so Miss Manners. So the following week, I come in. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're actually like sitting down. And and the thing is, it's not about rules. It's about motivation, and they absolutely love you. And I just think we can be really creative with how we reach people inside the church and outside the church. And I love that you are invested in that. I just want to ask you a question because we've got a few more minutes left, glancing at the clock down there, about what it's like to pastor adult children. Now, let me just rephrase that or explain that. Everyone is somebody's child. So when you're 50 years old, I'm 50, and I am my parents' child. Pastoring adult children is actually really interesting when you've got generations in the same church.
Yes.
And I know we've had a conversation about this, and I just want to talk a little bit about how important it is that honor doesn't go away with age. The Bible says honor your parents, and it comes with a promise of, longevity of life. But obeying your parents, it's like making sure that we can understand there's a difference, because obedience, like you train up a child in the way that they will go and they won't depart from it. We've got our kids for such a short period of time. That's when we train them, and that's when, you teach them all those things and they teach them to obey. But then there's a time where you let them go. And it's hard for parents, but you have to let them go.
Right.
How do you? I know that's a very loaded question.
Yeah.
We might need to do part 2, but we'll get started.
Okay.
Because that's a real thing, and you've seen healing come to families.
Yeah.
You've also seen sad departures of people that have not been able to work this out.
Yeah.
And just speak a little bit of wisdom. And I think we probably will need to continue this conversation because it's a big one, but it's really important.
I think that for me, my goal in parenting was to reveal God to my kids, not to be God for them, but to reveal who he was in the hopes that they would love him. When it comes to being obeyed, the goal of demanding obedience for me with my kids was for them to know about God's heart and what pleased him. So as they've gotten older and it's shifted from more of an obedience, you do this to obey me, it should be, I'm proud of you for learning to obey God. And as for the respect and everything that comes, I feel like it needs to be mutual. Like there's an appreciation that's built from years of respect that comes. So it is one of the most challenging transitions to recognize the position I'm in with my adult child. Am I asked by God at that moment to be their pastor? Sometimes I am, and that's tricky. Most of the time, God uses other people to pastor my children because they can hear God and not mother.
Yeah, I agree
with that. And that's the goal.
I have pastors in my children's life because I want to, especially because we're the senior pastors, it's even more difficult for us and for our kids. So, of course, we're there, we talk Bible, we pray with them and everything, but if there's something they want to talk out and they just want some space, they'll either talk to you.
Yeah.
If you've got brownies, they'll talk to you all day. But also Pastor Bree, and we're going to do an interview with Pastor Bree, because I'm the pastor of the pastor who pastors the pastor's kids.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good little...
Yeah, that is good.
But, I love... Your kids are awesome. Very, very different.
Very.
And they're actually all very outstanding humans, and I love each one of them dearly, and you've done an amazing job. And I think, what qualifies us for ministry is the fact that we love God, we point people to Jesus, that we keep going.
Yes.
And that we live it ourselves.
Yeah.
And, if everything's going well all the time, I know I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but if everything's going well all the time, then how on earth do we lead and let people see how you do tough? How do you do strong when you just want to fall over?
Yeah.
And you are a serious strength. And I just want to thank you for being there for me personally, and also for being there for everyone. I mean, you've got this ability to sprinkle love without it being like an all-day thing. Because if everyone could have a cup of tea with Pastor Kim, they would. And you do that a lot, but you also, what you do is you do it really well. So, I say thank you for that. And if you've got a thought that you want to just send off to everyone as we close now about one thing that has helped you be a woman in leadership in our church that is like the one thing that is primary.
I would say for me, the most primary foundational joy and strength of my life that I'd like to share with people is gratitude. I'm very grateful for my life. My life is a gift. I was given it back several times. And in the face of things in life that may make you want to complain, I find that gratitude is a great immunizer.
You
You can't even then talk, you're so grateful.
No, but guess what? It's whatever you want it to be. How
That's
about that?
right.
We're with
Yeah,
you on
there
that.
you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
We definitely have to have these conversations more often.
Yeah.
And I think we should do one with you and one of your kids,
Oh,
because that
boy.
would be really fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love them.
All
yes.
right. Well, thanks
They're
for
my
being
friends.
here.
Thank
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us today on the Sisterhood Leadership Podcast with Dianne Wilson, recorded live from Orange County, California. If you'd like to subscribe, click on the link below.